So I'm sure most people have heard of The Matrix. It released in 1999, it was directed by the Wachowskis, and it won 4 Oscars. It made nearly $500 million, and it was the first movie to sell 1 million copies on DVD. It has been reserved in the National Film Registry archives in 2012, and has been considered one of the best sci-fi movies ever made, on par with films such as Star Wars and Terminator. So clearly this film is well loved and has quite a big place in entertainment history. I mean, by the time the Matrix sequels released, the film had been parodied in over 22 movies. But chances are you most likely know the effect this movie had on pop culture and special effects. So instead of talking about all that, I'm going to talk about the film itself and analyze the movie's story, themes, characters, and much more, to see if it still holds up. Bearing in mind, I'm not trying to hold The Matrix up to modern day standards of films because that isn't fair. The Matrix is a very polarizing movie for many. While it was a critical and commercial success at the time, many people in the nearly 20 years it's been released have brought the movie's quality into question. I mean, there's no doubt the movie was revolutionary, but is it actually a good movie? That's what I'm here to answer. Bearing in mind, there will also be spoilers in this video. This video will be talking about the whole movie. Also, there are parts of this video where I will be skipping through huge chunks of the movie, so that I can explore certain topics. So it's better if you've seen the movie, so you know where the scenes in the movie take place. Otherwise, it'll seem like a very jumpy video. So, why don't we start off with one of my favourite parts of the movie, the philosophy of The Matrix. So, The Matrix is a film about a man named Thomas Anderson, who was a worker at a computer company named Metacortex, the cortex being the part of the brain responsible for consciousness. Thomas Anderson is also a hacker that goes by the name Neo, and is constantly searching for answers to the Matrix. The Matrix ends up being a simulated reality used by machines to harvest humans and use them as an energy supply. Yeah, it's a silly plot, and humans aren't necessarily the best energy source, but it leads to some very interesting ideas. The first of which being perception, and the way us humans perceive things. Morpheus explains this quite well in the movie.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
This means our natural human instincts are not valid ways of proving or measuring something, since these senses can be tricked. Just because you can see something doesn't mean it's real. It could just be a visual hallucination. Same goes for hearing and all the other senses. The Matrix is a computer simulation, and the whole point of the Matrix is that you don't know you're inside of a computer simulation. This works kind of like a dream. When dreaming, you oftentimes are not aware of the fact that you are dreaming. It's why you'll often interact with the dream without even realizing it. Also, the reason why in dreams you're able to accept wild and crazy scenarios, like riding a unicorn in space, is because the part of your brain that uses logic, aka the prefrontal cortex, doesn't work properly, and thus wild and crazy scenarios seem completely normal. It's probably what Morpheus is referring to when he talks about the splinter in the mind.
You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad.
Neo is feeling this because he is questioning the reality of it all, which is something the brain isn't supposed to do while dreaming. He is just supposed to go along with it. It's why dreams can feel so real whilst also not being logical, since dreams are not built upon logic, they're built upon emotion. However, it is possible to be aware of the fact that you are dreaming. It is something called lucid dreaming, and if achieved, means you can change the dream to how you see fit, which is kinda like this scene here.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon?
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
Neo realizes that the spoon in his hand is just lines of code in a computer program. Since he knows it's not real, he can bend the spoon. To add more to the idea that the Matrix is a dream world, there is this one shot of Trinity downloading how to fly a helicopter into her brain, and her eyes twitch rapidly. Most dreams happen during something called rapid eye movement, which takes up around 25% of your total sleep time. So this may also add to the idea that this is just a dream. What I'm trying to say here is that the Matrix itself is a metaphor for dreams and perceptions of reality. It also kind of feels like a nightmare where you are constantly being chased down corridors by inhuman things. You are never free from their grasp. But maybe the real nightmare is the truth. In one of the most famous scenes of the film, Morpheus gives Neo a choice.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
The red pill represents the brutal truths of reality, while the blue pill represents blissful ignorance of illusion. The choice given in the context of the film is that Neo can either be unplugged from the Matrix and join the other red pills in the real world in their fight against the machines, or he can return to his everyday life where he will just be a normal person. Now, if you were to ask this question to many people, then you would get many conflicting results. Those who would take the blue pill would most likely say that they want to feel happy and in a place of security. They may realize that the truth often hurts their own personal beliefs, and so they don't want to know the truth since it doesn't matter to them. They place feelings over facts. People who take the red pill will often say that the facts are more important and that the truth is harsh but fair and shouldn't be tossed away just because it doesn't align with your emotions. Both sides have merit, but overall I'd say I take the red pill. Now, I said that the real nightmare is the truth because learning that nothing you've experienced your whole life was real and was all fake would take a toll on the mind. Maybe the nightmare is reality itself, having to face the machines in constant darkness because, according to Morpheus, we scorched the sky to stop these machines because they were dependent on solar power. It's a night that never ends now. Maybe both the dream and reality coexist, which is an idea presented in the 1981 philosophical book Simulacra and Simulation by Jean Baudrillard. His book does make a cameo in the movie as a holobook. His idea was that our current society has replaced all reality and meaning with symbols and signs, and that the human experience is a simulation of reality. This may relate to the code of the Matrix and the symbols. The truth of the real world and design has been pulled away from humans and has been replaced with code and simulates reality. This may also get into the idea of materialism by George Berkeley, which states that there is no such thing as matter. The only things that exist are our ideas and perception. This applies to the Matrix really well, as while the world itself is not real, your thoughts are real. According to George Berkeley, everything we see in the world is a collection of ideas. Matter is just an experience instead of, say, an object that is real beyond what we think or feel about it. The idea is that the world is built upon ideas and ideas are not reality, thus nothing is real. Another part of the mind that can be applied to the Matrix is this scene.
I thought it wasn't real.
Your mind makes it real.
If you're killed in the Matrix, you die here?
The body cannot live without the mind.
You see, technically everything you've ever seen or experienced is real, although not in the objective sense. When you see, hear, smell, taste, or touch something, it becomes part of your consciousness, thus your mind makes it real, even if it is only real in your head. It's a bit complicated, and I'm probably terrible at explaining this, so you may not understand. Anyway, there is more ideas in the film presented, and I could talk about them all day, but I just find it so fascinating that The Matrix has so many interesting ideas behind it. It's a very intellectual movie that provokes thought. It's not something I can say for a lot of action movies. I mean, the thing is, I don't understand everything in this movie, but that isn't a bad thing since it makes me want to watch it more and figure out more about the movie. A story should answer questions, but not every question, like Trinity says.
It's the question that drives us, Neo. It's the question that brought you here.
It's what keeps me coming back to this movie because it gives me something to think about and consider. It gives me a new perspective on life and the way we perceive things. It just makes me want more.
Well, you don't have to understand it all the time. You understand as much as you understand on one viewing. You understand a little something else on another. You can watch it several times and get something different each time. I think that's the beauty of it.
I wish there were more action films like The Matrix that provoke thought from me, but sadly there isn't really anything that comes close. But I guess that's what makes this movie so special. Well, it's not the only thing that makes it special, because The Matrix is also known for its action sequences. The action scenes in this movie are awesome. The reason why they're so awesome is because they have a good blend of Hong Kong style mixed with anime and some awesome special effects. They give a good variety and each fight scene feels different from the other and each is memorable. My favourite is probably the lobby shootout. It only lasts 2 minutes, but I like the mix of kung fu and gunfights, plus the fact that Neo has like 200 guns strapped to him.
Would you please remove any metallic items you're carrying, keys, loose change? Holy shit!
I also like the fact that there are no special effects used in this scene, apart from removing the wires the actors use to run off walls and do handstands. Everything you see in this scene is practical. Yes, Carrie-Anne Moss actually did run and jump off a wall, albeit with wires. I also do like the fights between Neo and Morpheus because it has a good mix of kung fu techniques and the camera work is awesome. I appreciate the wide shots. I also do like how it fits into the story too. Another detail I like about this scene is the filter. Every scene in this movie that takes place in The Matrix is given a green filter to make it feel like you're looking through an old computer monitor. The scenes in the real world are not given any filter, but they mostly use the color blue. The filter used in this fight scene is yellow, because this scene doesn't take place in the real world, but it also doesn't take place in The Matrix. It takes place in the construct.
This is the construct. It's our loading program.
Nice touch, if you ask me. Though not every action scene in this movie holds up. The fight scene at the beginning with Trinity is kinda hard to watch because it doesn't have that good of lighting, and it cuts quite frequently. But for the most part, these scenes do hold up very well, and are still a blast to watch. Another reason the fight scenes are awesome is because each one relates to the story, and none are redundant. Each fight has context and a reason to happen, and because we're invested in the characters and story, it makes us care even more about these scenes. In the first fight scene with Morpheus, Morpheus is trying to teach Neo that he can bend and break some of the rules of the Matrix because nothing is real.
It has the same basic rules like gravity. What you must learn is that these rules are no different than the rules of a computer system. Some of them can be bent, others can be broken.
Morpheus keeps hammering down on Neo and does beat Neo, not by punching him in the face, but showing that he could punch him in the face, thus winning the fight. Neo then does the same to Morpheus, showing that Neo can match and beat Morpheus in a fight. The next fight happens a little over halfway into the movie, where Morpheus fights Agent Smith. Smith grabs Neo, but Morpheus can't allow them to capture Neo since he's the one, and is too important. So he crashes through the wall and fights Smith, knowing it's a suicide mission. This shows how committed Morpheus is to the journey of the ending of the war. He's ready to give his whole life for it. Smith beats Morpheus and leaves a SWAT team to beat the crap out of him. The next fight scene occurs at the end of the movie between Smith and Neo. Both are equally matched in the fight, which kinda hints at the path they both follow in the sequels. Neo even applies the same fight moves he used in the fight scene with Morpheus to fight Smith. This also gives us a good idea of Smith's character, and how he has a certain respect for Neo, to the point where he would actually fight him instead of, say, Trinity, where he just tries to run it over with a truck, or Morpheus, where he just leaves a SWAT team to handle him. Smith eventually does just try to get Neo killed by having a train run him over, but Neo lifts him into the ceiling, which hints at Neo having the ability to fly. Neo escapes into an apartment building, the same apartment building from the start of the film, the Heart, which hints at Neo and Trinity's love for each other. Smith kills Neo, then Neo comes back to life and defeats Smith. Overall, the fights in The Matrix work because they service the story quite well, they have great choreography and cinematography, and they have a great use of gung fu. They still hold up quite well, and it's still one of the reasons this movie is so fun to watch. But what about the story and characters itself? Well, the story of The Matrix is pretty simple. Simple isn't bad, though. Neo is considered to be the one. They free him from the Matrix. He becomes the one and beats Smith. The characters themselves is what makes it interesting. Neo is probably the most relatable character. I mean, he's the main character, so duh. But I think the reason this character works is because he's kind of a reflection of our own lives. I mean, most people in the world have boring jobs with annoying bosses and are constantly searching for more to life, whilst also having greater fantasies and becoming something bigger than themselves. I mean, the thing is with Neo is that despite taking the red pill, he still kind of is living a fantasy. His life before the red pill was pretty standard average life. I mean, even if it was a simulation. And then he learns kung fu, gains superhuman strength, and gains the ability to fly. I think that's why I like this character so much. He's not deep, but I can relate to his life and what he wants. He's a great main character, and Keanu Reeves does a great job playing him and transitioning between a not very self-confident Thomas Anderson to a very self-confident Neo.
You're empty. So are you.
Morpheus is an interesting fellow. He's supposed to be the leader of this group of red pills. He acts like a higher being and is always the smartest man in the room. However, he isn't invincible and needs help from others constantly. He talks with a very mysterious voice, and Lawrence Fishburne does a great job at portraying this intimidating but motivating character.
As you no doubt have guessed, I am Morpheus.
It's an honor to meet you.
No. The honor is mine.
Trinity is the love interest, but the character herself acts very conflicted. One scene I like is when she brings Neo some food whilst he's sleeping and stares at him for a bit, and then Cypher questions whether Neo is the one.
There is something about him, isn't there?
Don't tell me you're a believer now.
I just keep wondering if Morpheus is so sure. Why doesn't he take him to see the Oracle?
Morpheus will take him when he's ready.
It shows that she doesn't exactly believe the idea of Neo being the one, or at least not yet, but does show some amount of interest in him. Characters like APOC and Switch don't really have much to do in the film and are just there to look cool and die. But one character that really intrigues me is Cypher. He plays a traitor who has been out of the Matrix for 9 years and is sick and tired of the real world and fighting the war against the machines. He makes a deal with Agent Smith that if he gets Morpheus for them, then they will insert his body back into the Matrix and make him forget about all this. He does eventually betray the group and kill APOC and Switch, and Dozer. What I do like is the attention to detail with the character. Just before he makes the deal with Agent Smith, he has a talk with Neo and shuts off all the screens except the Matrix feed, because those are the only screens that Neo can't understand yet. He doesn't want Neo or anyone knowing of his plans. He also does make a joke about the blue pill.
I know what you're thinking. Because right now I'm thinking the same thing. Actually, I've been thinking it ever since I got here. Why, oh why, didn't I take the blue pill?
Which at first does seem like a joke, but we later understand that this is actually him being honest. Cypher's motivations are reasonable. He's tired of fighting the war, tired of eating crappy food, and just wants a better quality of life. I don't agree with what he does, but I can understand why he does it. I honestly think this character is one of the best parts of the movie and deserves more appreciation. Every time I watch the movie, I notice something new about Cypher, and it just blows me away how much detail was put into his character. Tank and Dozer are here mostly to give perspectives of those born outside the Matrix. What I do like is that both Tank and Dozer are very upbeat characters, probably because they weren't separated from the Matrix. This is probably why those separated from the Matrix act so stoic, because the idea that the whole world is fake would take a toll on the mind, as said earlier. Because both of these guys have never experienced it, they haven't faced the misery of realization. Thus they are pretty upbeat and positive. I mean, I like this scene where they're all sitting down and having food, and everyone else is complaining about the food.
If you close your eyes, it almost feels like you're eating runny eggs.
You know, a bowl of snot.
Except Tank and Dozer. You see, everyone else in this scene has had better experiences with food in the Matrix, even if it is fake. Thus, they aren't too happy about this food.
It's a single-celled protein combined with synthetic aminos, vitamins, and minerals. Everything the body needs.
Tank and Dozer have never had a better experience, and so they appreciate what they have. Overall, they're a welcome addition to the cast. And finally, Agent Smith. Probably the most iconic character in the whole film. He's a very intimidating character in each scene he's in, and Hugo Weaving has the perfect voice for a monotone and intimidating character.
Tell me, Mr. Anderson, what good is a phone call if you're unable to speak?
He's the main bad guy, and he acts sort of like the Matrix police, I guess. He has an interest in Neo and has some amount of respect for him. He also shows that he only cares about himself, and that he's only in this for personal gain. I mean, he just goes completely off the book and goes berserk on Morpheus.
I must get out of here. I must get free. And in this mind is the key, my key. Once Zion is destroyed, there is no need for me to be here. Do you understand? I need the codes. I have to get inside Zion. And you have to tell me how.
He acts as an equal for Neo and a good challenge to overcome. I like how surprised he looks when Neo kicks him down the hallways at the end, like, holy crap, this isn't meant to happen. The characters in The Matrix each have interesting roles in the story and unique quirks that make them different from each other, and it makes it very entertaining to watch. I also think the soundtrack in this film is really good. A lot of the music used in this film is licensed music, but there is some original tracks, and here are some of my favorites. There isn't too much I dislike about this film, but I think I should cover it anyway. Some of the special effects don't hold up and are really distracting. There are also some weird pieces of dialogue like this.
This is insane. Why's this happening to me? What'd I do?
Like, dude, you're guilty of virtually every computer crime, and you're wondering why men in suits are after you. I think also the pacing of the movie can be a bit slow at times, and I think having expendable characters in the movie that don't do anything except die is just bad. I also don't think the love story between Neo and Trinity work. I mean, it just feels shoved in at the last minute. These two have zero chemistry together, and like now they're just in love? What? These problems aren't enough to ruin the film, but they are quite annoying, especially on repeated viewings. In conclusion, The Matrix is a terrific film with great action, characters, and interesting themes and ideas. There are a few problems with it, but I can forgive all that in service of just watching the movie and having a good time. I kinda wish there were more films like The Matrix, but I also think that it makes it very special to watch. The Matrix may have a bunch of imitators, but there can only be one true Matrix.
Free your mind up, don't stop now. Free your mind and the rest will follow. Free your mind up, don't stop now. Free your mind and the rest will follow. Free your mind up, don't stop now. Keep running, they're coming out right behind us. So free your mind and the rest will follow. When they get to the front door, pop the hollows. Free your mind up, what's to come? A little blood, broke bones, and a punctured lung. Free your mind and the rest will follow. If you live another day, we can fight tomorrow. Live another day, we can fight tomorrow.